This is part 2 of a 3-part webinar series brought to you by Entourage Connect called Seeing Green in Ohio, Navigating Cannabis Safety, a Beginner's Guide to Mindful Cannabis Consumption. So let me just admit Lisa. Today's webinar is going to focus on consumer health and mindful cannabis consumption. You know, with the legalization happening in Ohio, the number of people who are canna curious and interested in how this plant could help them is going to increase. So today, me and my guest, Dr. Hamant, want to share some info with you guys so we can, enjoy this plant responsibly and elevate our wellness. So as people come in, I'll continue to admit them, but we'll just get started since people are here on time. So before we get started, I just want to say hello. Thank you for being here. This is brought to you by Entourage Connect. And for those of you who haven't heard too much about us, we are a collaborative community for canna curious and creative individuals, amateurs, and professionals, brands and businesses in the cannabis industry and adjacent industries to all come together to connect, collaborate, and create an elevated impact to benefit people in cannabis, wellness, and beyond. We understand the misinformation that exists in this industry, so we focus heavily on sharing education and event opportunities for people to connect and learn more about this plant so we can really end the stigma and elevate our wellness. My name is Erin Babcock. I am the Education Director here at Entourage Connect. I earned my master's in medical cannabis science and therapeutics, and I am very passionate about sharing cannabis science and education on the endocannabinoid system to empower others to elevate their self, health, and quality of life. And with me today, I have a special guest. I am joined by Dr. Hamant Kumar Bid. He is a professional in this industry. He's got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge with a super diverse background. He's got a graduate degree in medical biochemistry and a master's in pharmacology. And with 18 years of experience in cancer research and drug discovery, he brings so much value to this industry as a whole in several areas. So he is an educator in several different programs across the nation. He does consultant work here in the United States and other areas. So his knowledge is super widespread. There's going to be time to ask questions, so make sure you keep those. You can post them in the chat if you think of a question while we're going on. But without further ado, Dr. Hamant, I would like you to say hello to the crowd and we can get started too. So
hello everyone. Thank you so much, Kelly, for bringing me here, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this session. And looking forward to hearing a lot of great questions from you guys. And as Kelly mentioned, that like I've been involved in the cannabis research as well as education part from a long time, and it being kind of like a fun journey to understand about the fast-growing industry as well as congratulations to everyone. Ohio getting recreational recently, and then we have a great future looking here, and with respect to so many different business opportunities, etc. So, but I think that like one of the most important thing that we all agree that like using the plant as a medicine, that we have to educate ourselves, we have to educate other people, either it is the patients, caregivers, first time users, or either the clinical side, either it is the MDs and nurse practitioner, or pharma D, etc. Because education is one of the key to success in this field, to give the respect to the plant as a medicine, because there are so many wonderful discoveries is happening in the plant every day that like we cannot just keep them there, because there are people that who are bringing those discoveries to the people to understand that how valuable the plant is, and how valuable the plant has interaction with the human body with one of the specific machinery, which is called endocannabinoid system. We are going to talk in this session. So thank you so much again for having me, and happy to answer any questions, and let's start the session.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. So, yeah, really today we're going to talk to you guys about various landmarks of this industry that help to contribute to using the plant to provide those medical benefits, because we can all agree here that cannabis can bring positive medical therapeutic effects to our body, our mind, our being. But the education, there's a lot of misinformation out there that exists due to the stigma that has existed on this plant for over 100 years. So to lead in, we're going to talk a little bit about the history and really why so much information is out there about this plant. Um, I learned that it was really the late 1800s when cannabis was getting stigmatized in the United States because Mexicans were bringing cannabis to America across the border after the Spanish American War. And that's when the term marijuana came about. And they closely tied that to the movement of the Mexican people. So that's really kind of when the bad reputation started to get put on cannabis. And an interesting fact that I find really fascinating that I think has a big part to do with why cannabis is not really part of our healthcare system is the early 1900s. There's something called the Flexner Report that was released, and that really had a lot to do with the design of medical school curriculum. And they decided to exclude all natural therapies, substances, and remedies that can help our body kind of heal itself. So with that, people did not learn about various like herbs and natural medicines, as well as cannabis and our endocannabinoid system. So there was a lot of misinformation spread in the 1900s that was just false and reefer madness kind of propaganda that was put out without really looking at the actual research. So, Dr. Hamont, can you tell us a little bit about the endocannabinoid system's discovery and how that has played a role kind of since that was first discovered till now, and a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's a really good information that what you share, because like we have to all understand about the history of medical cannabis, not only in the country but globally also. And when we see that like Asian countries that like in 2737 BC, that like India, China, etc., that they were that using medical cannabis, they were in the religious and cultural infusion people are using from a long time. And then after that, like it's keep moving on. 1900 that medical cannabis enter, and then 1798 that like Dr. William, that he did so many experiments using medical cannabis for so many different disorders, specifically epilepsy, that which we have that FDA approved Epidiolex drug. And along with that, that slowly we were moving for the Harrison Act, medical marijuana tax act, and then finally we put this amazing medication in a Schedule 1, which will create the whole caveat in all over the country. But when we think about the history of medical cannabis, as Kelly mentioned, that like there are so many names of this. Either it is marijuana from Spanish, or either ganja from Hindi, or pot, or bong, or kush, or reefer, and weed. And the reason being that these are all different names, because globally we all are fighting the same plant, and that to give the reputation of the plant and its medical history. So I think that like we are not alone here. We all are fighting the same fight to giving the great place to the plant to appreciate its medical benefit. And when we think about the history in cannabis, so we have to remember that when 13 colonies were being established, farmers were required by the English to produce crops consisting at least 25% of hemp. So sales and ropes were needed to trade the ships, etc. And then one of the important things we all need to understand, that hemp was the backbone of the development of America. George Washington, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, these are all our leaders, that they were all hemp farmers. Our Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper in June 1976. So that was the amazing information that what we are seeing here, that like that, oh my God, that there are William Brooks, that, like who is recognized as the founding father of the modern medical medicine, which was the Irish assistant surgeon. And he did so much groundwork, the work, and published in the Medical and Physical Society of Calcutta, that it was amazing that, like he opened the door for medical cannabis globally, as well as that, when we talk about overall in United States, medical cannabis is not a new thing. Before 1930s, Eli Lilly has the tinctures that which sits on the dispensaries, and people can use those ones. And then after that, it was put in Schedule 1, and everything was like kind of like a huge caveat going on. But on the other hand, that the one of the topic that what Kelly mentioned, that, like it's always a kind of like we were ignoring that, but the discovery was continuously going that, and we didn't give the full respect or the knowledge of this endocannabinoid system to the patients and caregivers and clinicians, which is called endocannabinoid system. Because we have to understand that, the medical benefit of the medical cannabis is basically the interaction between the phytocannabinoids with our body, the one of the unique system which is called endocannabinoid system. And 1940 CBD was identified, 1964 THC was identified, but 1988 one of the part of the endocannabinoid receptor, which is CB1 receptor, was discovered. 1990 CB1 receptors were cloned, and then after that, so on, 1992, 1993, anandamide 2-AG were discovered. So these are all the parts of the endocannabinoid system. But overall, that, as in our body, there are so many different systems like nervous system, reproductive system, like nervous system, etc. That, like endocannabinoid system is also one of the part of our body, like respiratory system and etc. The reason being is because this is a very unique system which creates the balance and the homeostasis in the mammalian body, working together as a good team player with all the other system in our body. So, and this amazing system was discovered by Dr. Hannes and Dr. Devane. And it was an amazing system because it is basically a very complex nerve cell signaling which modulates our nervous system. And our nervous system has two parts, which is central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, which helps to maintain the homeostasis. And now every part of our body, every system of our body actually work through a lock and key system. So basically, when we talk about the endocannabinoid system, in the simplest way, we can say that there's a lock and there's a key. And the lock is basically the receptors, which is CB1 and CB2, which is the main receptor. But the key is the molecules which our body produces. That's why it's called endocannabinoids, which is anandamide and 2-AG. So basically, anandamide and 2-AG bind with CB1, CB2 receptor, but there are so many other receptors also has been explored. There are so many other molecules has been explored that people has no idea, but we always talk about anandamide and 2-AG, CB1, CB2 because they are the major receptors. And at least to get a better idea of the system, we can stick with that because it's kind of like a totally a big loophole that where I can go and that keep talking about endocannabinoid system for hours. So when we talk about the endocannabinoid system, so basically that CB1 and CB2 are the major receptors. But the important part is that how these receptors and how this system is important, because CB1 and CB2 receptors are expressed in now so many parts of our body, either it is liver, brain, thyroid cancer, stomach, gastrointestinal system, reproductive system, and brain and nervous system, bone system, etc. But then
Everywhere.
but then that, the question is that if they are expressing everywhere, then what we get the message we get is that means that they play a very important role to maintain the normal physiological function of each and every organ in our body. So
Yeah.
one big advantage. And the second is that if anything happened to these organs, either it is a liver damage, either it is lung damage, is a gastrointestinal disorder, that CB1 and CB2 could be a very important therapeutic target for those disorders also. And that's why we call the beauty of medical cannabis based medication is that it is not only preventive but also therapeutics. So that means if somebody is knowingly unknowingly using medical cannabis very low amount every day, is basically they are nurturing their body because it has a preventive properties also. So basically in the endocannabinoid system, there are molecules which call endocannabinoid. There are receptors which is CB1, CB2, GPR55, GPR18, TRVP, PPR gamma, ion channels, you name it. And there are enzymes and transporters which facilitate these reactions, which is called FAH, MAGL, and so many that, like it's just, it's amazing to see, and it's fascinating to see that how endocannabinoid system is expressed in all of our body and maintain an important role. But on the other hand, that we have in a scientific system, we have the tools. We have the tools for RNA-based expression, DNA-based expression, protein-based expression to tell, and there are human protein atlas that, the website that which can tell you that where exactly with the RNA level, DNA level, and protein level that these endocannabinoid receptors are expressing everywhere. And the important part is to expressing all those things. The human endocannabinoid system actions are so diverse. They are the part of the neurotransmission, cognition and memory, control of motor function, reward pathways, nociception, and neuroinflammations and fibrogenesis, anti-fibrogenesis, bone formation, heart rate, hypotension, immunomodulation, gut motility, appetite, inflammation, energy metabolism, insulin resistance, you name it. So
Everything.
yes, it's
Yeah.
everything. So
It's
basically,
involved in everything. And I feel like that has to do with the fact that it's maintaining homeostasis. It's helping keep our balance at the core of who we are, rather than not traditional, conventional healthcare is more kind of, oh, you have inflammation, like, here, take this substance, take this pill that will help reduce your inflammation, or really just help reduce the pain associated with your inflammation, rather than at the core what is causing that inflammation. And one of the coolest things that I think about the endocannabinoid system is the fact that it regulates our relaxation response, which is opposite of our stress response. So there's something called our HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and that's one of the major links between the nervous system and the endocrine system. So when stressors are thrown at us, because this is the 21st century and stress is very normalized and prevalent in our world, and we aren't really taught too much stress management skills, which could also correlate with skills or habits that boost our ECS. But when stressors are thrown at you and the stress response is activated in our own system, the HPA axis is elevated and activated, and that's what releases our stress hormones, like cortisol is one of the major ones. But the ECS actually plays a role in HPA axis homeostasis. So if our ECS is regulated, our endocannabinoids are high and circulating, then when stressors are thrown at us, we have more resilience to not let the stress response get activated. So rather than feeling stressed with cortisol circulating throughout us, we're more so calm and balanced. And stress does not exist outside of us. Stress exists within us. Stressors exist outside of us. When we perceive something as a threat, that's when the stress happens within. But we can set our bodies and minds up for success by regulating our endocannabinoid system. And a lot of the times, chronic stress is the root of a lot of disorders, diseases, dysfunctions when it comes to mental health issues, chronic diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, metabolic disorders. A lot of the times that has to do with chronic stress, and that evolving into chronic inflammation or negative thinking patterns and things that cause those dysfunctions to develop into disorders. So it's really an amazing system. I know Dr. Hamant and I are both like very passionate about it. And I think everyone has an endocannabinoid system, so everyone should know what their endocannabinoid system is. And I know a lot of people are kind of intimidated by that word because it's so big and unfamiliar, but it's just about breaking it down into bite-sized chunks and just understanding it, because this hasn't been a part of our education system. It's not our fault that we don't know that much about it, or the general public doesn't know too much about it, because we haven't really been taught much about it. So yeah, Dr. Hermant touched on tons of functions that the endocannabinoid system plays a role in, pretty much influences every regulatory function that takes place in our body. Like he said, those receptors are located within every organ system we have. It interconnects all of the other systems and helps it operate optimally. But when our endocannabinoid system isn't functioning right, isn't operating optimally, we're not supporting it the way it does, that's when unwellness occurs. And I feel like none of us can deny the unwellness that exists worldwide, in the US, in other countries, with mental health issues, with arthritis, with heart attacks, with diabetes. Like, people are not generally healthy, and the endocannabinoid system is a big key to achieving this holistic harmony and health, I believe, as well. I guess touching on the endocannabinoid system still, we know that by the name endocannabinoid, that is what components of the cannabis plant are working with. But like Dr. Hamont said, we produce our own molecules called endocannabinoids that can regulate the system naturally. So you don't necessarily need cannabis, but it can supplement the system if you're not doing all of the things that elevate it naturally. So um, I can name a couple: exercising, meditating, eating polyunsaturated fatty acids, smiling, social interaction. All of these things I just named are considered healthy habits. And when people do them, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes me feel good. But what they're also doing is elevating our endocannabinoids that are in our body. And so they are raising our well-being, they're promoting our happiness, they're reducing inflammation, they're keeping us stress-free. So I think it's pretty amazing that, like, we have all of the equipment inside of us to be balanced, and it's just about unlocking the key to that knowledge and utilizing it. Um, do you have
So
anything to add on that,
yeah,
Dr.
so I think that, it's a really good point that what you mentioned. And I think that, like the term that we use scientifically in this field, which is called that how to improve your ECS tone. So the body has the ECS, and we have to improve the tone and maintain the tone by healing your gut, eating right, and exercises, and sleep well, and stress less makes a big difference. Along with that, that when we talk about that, it is present in every part of our body. There are so many people that who don't understand, or there are a lot of questions that which comes to us, that that you mentioned, that we call endocannabinoid system because body produced it endocannabinoids. So, but again, that there is a system that in the body, because body is a very controlled machinery. That means everything is balanced. The body is allowed to release a certain amount of endocannabinoids in the body. If something inflammation happen or something dysfunction happen in the body cannot produce a huge amount of endocannabinoids because the endocannabinoid receptors are everywhere in the body. So they are going to bind with everywhere. And if they release, body release, because body get panic that body has the COVID or lung dysfunction, etc. So then there is a huge caveat in the body. So that means body is trained to maintain the homeostasis. That's why body is going to release a certain amount of endocannabinoid system. So that means if there is a disease, so that means we need extra help because body cannot make more than that. So that how that endocannabinoid system interact with the phytocannabinoids, and that's where that medical cannabis provide you a help on top of your endocannabinoid system in the body in such a way that because it is going to bind with the same receptors. And one of the important thing is in our body, the reason being the endocannabinoids, the phytocannabinoids are so important, or endocannabinoids exactly work like our neurotransmitter dopamine and glutamate and GABA receptors, etc., because these are all the neurotransmitters which play a very important role to maintain the homeostasis. And another important thing is that people don't understand that we are not using only the phytocannabinoids. We are using the molecules in the endocannabinoid system to target them, to do so many clinical trial from 2010 that in 2018 there was a Belgium that there was a clinical trial for MAGL inhibitors and FAH inhibitors and exocannabinoid inhibitors, etc. So we are using endocannabinoid system and creating the small molecules and big molecules to block these components also to stop the reaction. But on the other hand, that as we were talking about, that one of the important part is that like endocannabinoid system is not only in the humans, it present in all the animals, including the vertebrates, mammals, birds, reptiles, fish, invertebrates, that sea urchins, leech, mussel, nematodes, and others. It
Yeah.
has been found in all the different animals except the phyla protozoa and insecta. So that means that what it said that it being what Erin mentioned, that means that it's not only the opportunity for the humans, because cats and dogs have such a big space in our society and they have the similar kind of disorders. Either it is like inflammation, either it is a wound, or either it is a cancer, either it is a bone disease, either it is epilepsy, etc. You name it. So that
Mhm.
means that like it is opening a big opportunity in the veterinary medicine, which is not explored yet. And California and Colorado has only the regulatory agencies are allowing the veterinarians to talk openly to their patients about the benefit of medical cannabis, so that like they can give that like CBD based or CBN based the medications, not including THC, and of course there's the dose titration, etc. So there is a huge opportunity there also, that which we are going to explore in the field of medical cannabis, because the diseases are the same and there are so many pharmacokinetics and dynamic studies has been done on using the animals, either rats and like guinea pigs and rabbits, etc. So we have a huge amount of database. We said that like definitely that there are a critical role of endocannabinoid system in our body to maintain the homeostasis. And along with that, there's a great term that Dr. Ethan that reported, which is endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. Because like if you talk about that 20 years ago, that when clinicians are treating the patients, they have no idea that why the patient is not responding. Maybe that they try so many different ways to treat the patients, but end of the day, now that we know the sequence of endocannabinoid system, because the human genome project is already cracked down, so that means we know the every sequence. We have the tools to sequence the CB1 receptor, CB2 receptor, many other receptors. We have the ELISA method to detect that how much the body is secreting the endocannabinoids in our body. So that means if patient is not responding, there could be the possibility that now that the clinicians have the tool, that they can sequence the patient's endocannabinoid receptors and say that, hey, there is some kind of anomalies are there, there's a sequence anomalies are there mutations are there are single nucleotide polymorphisms are there, and because of that the key and lock system is not working very well, and that's why you are not responding the way the other person is, because cannabis itself is a very personalized medicine.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, we all have an endocannabinoid system and we're all gonna react uniquely to it. And I mean, that goes for any substance you take. Like, even if we all take the same pharmaceutical at the same time, does not mean we're all gonna react the same. So I feel like that's a really important piece of health that is not really included in our healthcare system. The fact that we're all different. And I love seeing kind of the alternative, integrative health programs where they are creating plans and for specific people based on a whole bunch of factors, because that's what's needed. We're all different. um,
And one
but
important that I wanted to mention before we close the chapter of endocannabinoid system is that we talk about the preventive and the therapeutic aspect of endocannabinoid system. But one of the important thing that we didn't talk about, that we explored so much in this system, the discovery and the research has been so much, that now that we are utilizing the levels of endocannabinoid system as a biomarker for early detection of so many different disorders. If we
mhm,
talk about AEA and anandamide and 2-AG, that we can detect these molecules in the plasma, in uterine tissues, in placenta, in endometrial carcinoma, and like ovarian cancer cells, etc. So basically, that we are using the levels of early detection in the menstrual cycle, early pregnancy, labor, early pregnancy complications, as well as the altered placenta development, or pregnancy disorders, gynecological cancer and non-cancer pelvic tumors, and infertility diagnosis. So we should appreciate that, like endocannabinoid system is not only giving the opportunity as a preventive and a therapeutic tool, but also giving us the opportunity to detect so many different disorders in early. And the mantra of the clinical setting is that early the diagnosis, the sooner the diagnosis is better the prognosis.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And are they taking those measurements through like blood tests? Is
Yes,
it
it's
being
an all
done?
blood test. It's a
Yeah.
serum-based test, and it's very easy test because it's a ELISA-based method. So it's a very, very easy test to detect all those things. It's amazing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That should definitely be a standard to be included. I believe if that's because that's endocannabinoid imbalances result in dysfunction.
Yes,
So
but again, that like same issue, same problem, that like there are very few people, few for organization, few institute, few courses that they incorporate all this information, because the information is too much outside there. But like to bringing the exact and accurate scientific information and updated information to the users, to the trainers, to the clinical side, to creating the CMEs, to creating the good courses and good master's program, makes a big difference in this field, to give the respect to the plant and utilize the plant the way we should be. Because as I always said that like if you wanted to use any medicine, every medicine in the Google that you type, that it has positives and it has negatives. And medical cannabis also has the same thing. It has a
yeah.
positives and a negative. But you have to understand that what are the positives, you have to understand that what are the negatives. Because once you know, as a user or as a caregiver, as a clinician, that how to utilize a medicine, because how to utilize the effective and efficient way of a medicine, you must know the positive and the negative of the medicine, and how to manage those things. That like if the clinicians know very understand about the variants, that what are the different variants are there, what are the strains are there, what are the different products are there, and why these products are there. Because we see and people say that there are so many different kinds of products in the market, and the question is why. The reason being is because it's a personalized therapy. Everybody's genome is different, everybody's endocannabinoid system is different. Along with that, everybody's disease is different, every disease subset is different, everybody's pathology is different. Maybe somebody is right now, that old people, the biggest user of medical cannabis in the United States. And if you think about their disorders, skin disorders, reproductive disorders, so many different disorders are there. But maybe there are people, they cannot smoke, they have an allergy with the alcohol, etc. Still they can use medical cannabis, because we are providing them a different approach of suppositories also, which is kind of really, really effective. But how many people are knowing that notion that like suppositories are very effective, how they work, and what are their utilization. So
Yeah.
basically, to knowing about that what are available, and along with that, that how to use them, or how to separate them with a good product with a not good product. Because it is a fast growing industry, there are a lot of players are there, where we see FDA sees a lot of companies that which don't show the way that their product should be. So that means certificate of operation is a really, really critical part, that where that we are seeing what kind of cannabinoids are there, what are the terpenes are there, what kind of different microbials are there. Because microbials are so important. If somebody has the immunomodulatory diseases, and so immunosuppressants are there because they have a liver transplant or kidney transplant, and these people are maybe anxiety and depression, etc., and they are seeking for help from medical cannabis. This all good because it's a holistic approach, but they need to understand that we need a quality product for those patients, otherwise it could be a really, really bad outcome. Along with that, the drug interaction, because all the clinicians, all the nurse practitioners, all the pharmaceutical pharma Ds and the scientists need to understand about the drug interaction of medical cannabis, how CBD work as an inhibitor of cytochrome P450 liver metabolizing enzymes, and THC worked as the activator, and how the clinicians need to be continuously titrating the dose of the modern medicine for the patients who are suffering from either blood disorders, like anticoagulant disorders like warfarin, or either like various different opioids or epileptic drugs like clobazam, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously, education, education, education. That is really the emphasis, I'd say, on this conversation. And I mean, it's programs like the ones that you're teaching. It's programs like the one I attended that is really helping to drive this industry forward and making it more accepted in the health and science side of things. So Dr. Hamant, I know you need to bounce in the next 5 minutes. So whenever you need to go, feel free to, and I can wrap up. I really appreciate you being here, but you did start to touch on like suppositories and other kinds of cannabis products. So sliding into that, I know dispensaries can be so overwhelming to a consumer because there's so many different types of products, various ways of administration, various formulas of which cannabinoids, which terpenes are involved. It can be overwhelming to step in there if you're a newbie and just trying to figure it out. There's a lot of options, and as technology and innovation continues, there's just going to be more that continue to come out. So really when looking at a product type or the type of administration you want to use, there's a couple questions to ask yourself or whoever's helping you, whether it's like a cannabis expert like one of us or the bud tender at the dispensary. But knowing what you're trying to achieve, what is your therapeutic application for using the product? Is it stress? Is it pain? Is it sleep? Really knowing what you're trying to address. And then also if you've had any prior use before that, because that can kind of help to direct you towards maybe the potency, which is the concentration of the product that you should be using. But one thing, I guess, before you head out, that I would like Dr. Hermont to talk a little bit about is with cannabis products, cannabis has over 500 components in it. Over 100 of those are phytocannabinoids, which mimic our endocannabinoids and can have interactions in our ECS. So something that is really prevalent, I mean, we're called Entourage Connect, and that is kind of a play on the term entourage effect, which is in cannabis. So Dr. Herman, could you talk a little bit about that before you leave, do you think?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting aspect that you brought it here. That because when we talk about the medical cannabis, the plant itself, the product itself has so many different components. We have major cannabinoids, we have minor cannabinoids, we have more than 100 that components are sitting there, and that's the one of the biggest question that scientists are keep digging, that why nature put all these components together, and not only the cannabinoids but also terpene and terpenoids and flavonoids and alkaloids, etc. So now slowly that we are giving and the appreciation to the terpenes, because terpenes are really a important aspect of that. So basically when we treat the patient, there are three different ways we can treat. Either we can treat in an isolate, that means either CBD, CBN, CBG, TSCB, whatever you name it, that one of the isolate is there. And another one is broad spectrum, where there's no TSC but all the components are there. And another is the full spectrum. So again, that it's kind of depends upon that where full spectrum, where that everything is there, including the tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the psychoactive part of the plant. It doesn't mean that I feel like that we are from the decades very harsh on tetrahydrocannabinol, because it is the compound that which is really I really personally appreciate, because I think that it has a lot of medicinal value of that. And especially that it plays such a great team player with all the different other cannabinoids. It's all depends upon that you have to know that how to use this. And again, the mantra is low and slow, but on the other hand, there are so many different factors go into that, that either you are the first user, or you are the regular user, where you are coming from, what kind of disease you have, what are the modern medication you have going on. But along with that, if somebody has neuropathic pain, and these are so many different great transdermal patches are available, that it's really helpful for those patients. But again, that maybe some patients are really helpful in the full spectrum. Some patients have broad spectrum with a certain kind of terpenes are there. And again, that the knowledge of terpene is so and so important. I feel like that I cannot tell that how critical it is, the knowledge of terpenes. The reason being is because they play a very crucial role. And because there are certain terpenes which are memory boosting, If the clinicians don't know that, this is memory boosting and they are giving to a PTSD patient, that means they are going to bring back their bad memories also. So we have to take that how you are treating the patients in a very, very serious way. And again, there are medications like Marinol, Sisamet, Sativex, Epidiolex. These are approved already and people are using it. So there are a lot of different method of administration, either inhalation, ingestion, oral, mucosal, topical, transdermal, that people use. It is based on that, like what you are using and why the reason of what is the reason for using it. Because, like there are so many different vaporizers are there are so many different temperatures are there are so many vaping things are there are water pipes are there are smoking devices are there, cigarettes are there, suppositories are there, patches are there, topicals are there. So it's not for one person, it's for a broad spectrum patients. We have to understand that, we are trying to give the privilege to using the medical cannabis to a broad spectrum group of patients who are coming with so many different disorders. So I hope that we will continue this conversation. And thank you so much for inviting me. I have to jump on to the other call, but it was a wonderful discussion with you, Erin, and looking forward to keep continue these discussions in future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Herman. You dropped so much knowledge on us today, and I really appreciate that. We will definitely collaborate again. Hope
Thank
you
you.
have a good
Have a
rest of
good
your
day.
day,
Yeah, you too.
and I'll see you soon. But hello, I'm gonna finish us out for the day. So cheers to Dr. Hermont for being here. He's so awesome and so appreciate him taking the time to come. So yeah, with the entourage effect, there's so many parts of this plant that can benefit us. People often put kind of THC on a pedestal and think that it's the one bringing the most benefit to them, but that's not necessarily the case all the time. For example, CBD is one of the other more dominant cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. And I was personally in the CBD industry for 2.5 years. So we dove really deep into it, and it's got a lot of great benefits in itself. It doesn't necessarily interact with our endocannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2, but it does interact with other receptors found in the body, like serotonin receptors, opioid receptors, these TRPV and PPAR receptors, which are heavily associated with inflammation. So CBD is a very good antioxidant, helping to reduce that inflammation. Its interaction near the opioid receptors helps to reduce pain sensation. And then its interaction with the serotonin receptors can boost mood, memory, learning. And CBD also helps to inhibit the breakdown of anandamide, which is one of our endocannabinoids. So by taking CBD, it's boosting our natural endocannabinoids that circulate. So it's boosting all of those effects that the endocannabinoid system plays a role in. Another point when going to the dispensary, or if you're just shopping for CBD or something, just going to a retail store, product labels can be kind of overwhelming. If you're in a regulated environment like a medical dispensary, there's certain regulations that they have to follow. So hopefully they're meeting that criteria and giving you all the information you're looking for. But when it comes to CBD and the hemp market, it's legalized federally, but it's not federally regulated. So depending on the state, processors have specific requirements they have to meet. But there's a lot of products that are made out there that are not necessarily under a licensed operator. And recently, the FDA had done a study on testing CBD products just on the market. And over 70% of them were mislabeled, meaning that they were misbranded as well. So they either contained way less CBD than the label said, or way more. So it's important to just be careful when you're shopping, especially for CBD and products not in a licensed dispensary, that you're really getting what you're buying, taking that extra step. So talking about cannabis, talking about how this plant works, just addressing some like common misconceptions with THC and people often putting that kind of up in the cannabinoid that's bringing them the benefit. It also is a misconception when people are shopping for kind of the highest THC percent they can get, like give me that 35-40% flower, or extremely high concentrates. And where THC is clinically proven for a variety of conditions, like stimulating your appetite for HIV and AIDS, as well as chemo-induced nausea and vomiting, amongst other things. But it's not necessarily always the top choice. You don't always need that super high percent THC, because it's the entourage effect. It's the combination of the cannabinoids, terpenes, and other components that play a role in the overall effect, not just the percent of THC. So that's a big common misconception. Another thing with THC is that it's mainly binding to our CB1 receptor, which is primarily found in our central nervous system, so our brain and spinal cord. And when it's consumed or used, it's bind to that receptor. Our endocannabinoids also bind to the CB1 receptor. So when THC is overly present in our system and it's taking up space at that receptor, it kind of can signal to our bodies that it doesn't need to produce endocannabinoids. So that can lead to an imbalance in itself. So making sure you balance your THC use with a natural habit that helps to boost your ECS, like exercising, eating right, polyunsaturated fatty acids are ideal for the endocannabinoid system. Meditating, doing yoga, breath work, or other things that can boost your ECS, or you're balancing that THC use with CBD or CBG, because both of those cannabinoids can help to boost our endocannabinoids as well. And there might be some others too, but those are the main ones I know. Another misconception is cannabis being a gateway drug to harder substances like fentanyl, cocaine, things like that. And I heavily disagree with that. I mean, we know CBD has a way higher, or CBD and cannabis have a way higher safety profile than a lot of these pharmaceutical developed drugs. And it's not necessarily a gateway to those kinds of substances. For me, I started using cannabis after I was done playing college soccer, and it was a gateway for me to open up my mind to possibilities that I didn't really consider before, and open my mind of creativity. So maybe a gateway to expansion of yourself, but not necessarily a gateway drug to harder, more dangerous substances. Um, Really important when you're using cannabis. It's popular. We know that it's popular. Over 60% of Americans now support cannabis use and legalization. So people know that it's okay, and they're maybe even using it, but it's going to be best to use it in a responsible manner. And some pointers that Dr. Hermont had already mentioned before, so I'm going to reiterate some of them. But one, I had kind of said, know your manufacturer of these products. Make sure you get a certificate of analysis or have access to one, because a certificate of analysis is a third-party test of that product. So that product was sent off to a lab, tested, made sure that it doesn't contain any elements that it shouldn't, that are going to hurt you, and that it contains what the label says it does. So you know you're getting a truthful product. Another one that Dr. Hermont did mention is go slow, go low, and go slow. That's with really any new cannabinoid, or really any product, whether you're new to cannabis or you're just trying out something new. It's best to just start with a low dose of whatever you're using, and you can always increase for the next one. So better than just jumping straight in and then having to try to backpedal. Which, fun fact, if you take too much THC, CBD typically can help to reduce that level of intoxication. So if you are experiencing some negative effects from over consuming THC in one dose or setting, then you can try to use CBD or even black pepper, which can interact with our CB2 receptors in our body. So that's just a little fun fact. Also, with responsible use, pay attention to the ratio of those cannabinoids. If you're looking for whatever therapeutic application you're going for, you might want more of the entourage effect. You might want a product that contains a little bit of THC, mostly CBD, and maybe some CBG too. Looking at those details uh, is definitely going to be beneficial in kind of narrowing down what products work best for you. Also, remembering that THC, overconsumption of THC can actually result in imbalance. So, just making sure you're incorporating habits or products that can maintain that balance of your endocannabinoid system and your receptors and the endocannabinoids circulating about. Also, to be cautious of those synthetic products that are out on the market. They're kind of controversial, I would say, but in a way, kind of a loophole for states that don't have recreational cannabis legal and accessible. These synthetic cannabinoids have been made, like Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO, HHC. Um, they're coming out with these compounds all the time, but they're not very natural. They're not naturally made. Um, they can be found in the plant in very small concentrations usually, but just to be cautious, I'm not saying don't ever use them and that all of them are super dangerous, but I would just be even more cautious than if you're using a CBD product or something from a dispensary, just to make sure you're not consuming a product that's of low quality or something that could hurt you. Um, I know Dr. Hamont mentioned this, but also to be sure to avoid drug-drug interactions. So if you're consuming a product like a gummy or a capsule or a drink, that has to go through your digestive system and be metabolized by your liver. So there are certain medications that are also metabolized by the same enzymes during digestion. So it's good to separate cannabis use by about 2 hours from taking other medications just to make sure there's no interaction. Because if there is, then one of those substances is going to be found at an abnormally high level in our bloodstream rather than being broken down properly. So that's definitely an important consideration, especially for the older populations. If you're looking to help get grandma or grandpa on some cannabis rather than some of these harsh pharmaceuticals, it's taking it low and slow and being careful with that transition because we want to avoid those interactions and any sort of negative effect coming from that. Also, to know your local and state laws. That's a part of responsible use. Here in Ohio, we just legalized cannabis, but that does not necessarily mean we can blaze down North High Street of Columbus. We still gotta know what our laws are, respect the laws, and keep ourselves safe and using it mindfully, responsibly with intention. So creating safe places within our community. You guys are all signed up for Entourage Connect, or at least on our newsletter list now. So we're definitely looking to create those safe places and collaborate with people. And then also, if you yourself, if you have a job, certain employers have different drug testing policies, whether they're zero tolerance, can't use it at all, or they don't drug test at all. Knowing where they're at and educating them too, if they are zero tolerance and they are open to having a conversation, then maybe providing some education or connect them with us at Entourage Connect, and we can help out talking to them if they're interested. So cannabis is on the up and coming. It's not going away. We've faced this stigma for 125 years now, but we're not going to regress. There's too many of us out here who are passionate about it, and we know the beauty it can do. It's really incredible to hear the stories of how cannabis has helped people in their various medical conditions, physical, mental, emotional, everything. And just like how it brings people together too. So it's not going away. This is really just the beginning. So knowing how to use the plant mindfully and responsibly to work with your body, because we're all different, we've got to figure out what works best for us. So it's definitely important. Education is still going to be super important. We're going to be having way more webinars like this and collaborating with more professionals like Dr. Hermont to come on here. If there's ever anything specific that you guys want to learn about, like feel free to hit us up, let us know, and we can try to make it happen with a webinar or an article or some content. But yeah, it's really a beautiful industry to be in. I'm really excited to see how health and wellness can improve over the next decades of years with cannabis really being integrated into our healthcare system.